Hello and welcome to Tech24 with me, Rebecca Bowring. Coming up in the programme, with its finances in the red after a year from hell, can Sony fight its way back to the top? We'll ask whether the new PlayStation Vita console could reverse the fortunes of the Japanese electronics maker. And can man live on social media alone? We'll meet Martin, the intrepid Frenchman who hopes to get by in Singapore with little more than his smartphone. Under attack from mobiles and tablets, is there still space for a dedicated portable games console? Well, that's what Sony's hoping as it launches its new PlayStation Vita in Europe and the United States. The Japanese electronics maker needs all the help it can get to restore its reputation after an annus horribilis. Sony bosses warn of a $2.9 billion loss for the year to March. This after the Japan earthquake, floods in Thailand and a hack attack on the PlayStation network all took their toll. Eric Olander is with me in the studio. So tell us, Eric, how much of this is a question of bad luck? How much of it is Sony's fault?
Well, you talked about the annus horribilis. This is not a year that's been bad luck. This has been 30 years. The last hit that Sony had was the Walkman, 1979. Since
what
then,
about the PlayStation?
The PlayStation, oh, fair enough. That was a hit, but it wasn't a revolutionary hit the same way. We had Nintendo come out with a PlayStation-like competitor box. We've had a number of competitors, but the way that Sony was able to innovate to the point where it redefined markets, that was the Walkman. The same way that Apple's done it with the iPhone and with the Mac and all these other products, Sony has just never been able to do it. I contend that so much of Sony's problems are Sony's internal management.
Well, it's just not competitive anymore?
It's not competitive anymore. They haven't been able to crank out the products that people must have the way that when I was 9 years old had to have that Sony Walkman. That is not what we're seeing today with the PS Vita, but it is close.
Okay, so talk about cranking out the products.
Here we
Can
have
this reverse their fortunes?
This probably by itself cannot do it. This is the PlayStation Vita right here, brand new, hot off the shelves. This is a great little device. There is no doubt that this is the best portable game player on the market by far. We've never seen anything like this. Will it, for 250 euros on Wi-Fi, 300 euros on 3G, be able to break out the new market? Probably not.
Is it just for hardcore gamers, though?
It really
Most of us are playing on our smartphones.
Well,
these
here's
days.
the big difference between this and the hardcore gamers on smartphones. These tactile controls, that's something that the hardcore gamers love to have. On the tablets and the iPhones, you don't have these tactile controls. So real gamers love to have these types of controls.
And on the back, there's a special sort of plate, I don't know what you would call it, a touchpad, I guess.
This is a touchpad, so this is sensor. You can basically control your game from the front and the back. It's got cameras on the front and the back. It also allows you to have cards that go up for 4 gigs, 8 gigs, and 16 gigs. There's a lot of versatility in this. There's 25 games available right now. This is an expensive unit, but it's got a beautiful, beautiful, stunning OLED screen here. So that OLED screen just gives you brightness and colors and all the different things that make the gaming experience so great. Another key feature of it, it's not just a game unit. I sound like I'm selling it here. But wait, there's more. No, but it allows you...
But there is more. It's chock full of features, isn't it?
And that kind of gets into this gray area. What is this thing? Is it a gamer? Is it a video screen to watch movies? Is it you can rent movies here. You can show pictures. You can do a lot with it. But it's not the all-in-one. Here's the big problem. I'm going to put this in my pocket with my phone.
You need a big, deep pocket, Eric. Good thing you've got deep pockets.
I do have deep pockets, literally, not financially. But the point is that it just doesn't fit quite the same way that, we're seeing a whole new generation of phones coming out from Samsung right now, which are about 4.5 inches wide, which are taking up this space in terms of gaming right now. This is going to have a tough place to fit in the market right now.
Is it coming onto the scene a little bit late as well?
Hard to tell. Will it? That we'll have to wait and see, and I don't have an answer for that. However, will it kind of redefine everything? I doubt it.
Because sales have been slumping in Japan, which is, of course, a good barometer always, isn't it, in the gaming world?
The Japanese are very early adopters on this. There's not an enormous amount of enthusiasm in the States and here in Europe, but there's a lot of excitement in certain sectors, particularly among hardcore gamers. And
tell us just briefly, they're starting to integrate more and more, aren't they, Sony social networking into their consoles?
Well, this has been Sony's fundamental problem, is that their different units, from the movies to the different electronics groups, have not been able to cross-pollinate their different products together. They're starting to come and do this right now. They're getting some of the Sony social networking. They are integrating with their TV devices. So, for example, you play here, you want to throw it on the screen, you can do that.
Thanks for taking us through the PS Vita, Eric. And we're going to stick with that theme of social networking now as we turn to our second topic. Can you survive 7 days in a foreign city simply by relying on the goodwill of others? And what if the only way to access those benefactors was via social networks? Well, that's the experiment launched by Social Media Week in London, and 2 switched-on young travellers took up the challenge. Daphne, a Singaporean, travelled to London, and Martin, a Frenchman, headed for Singapore, armed with the clothes on his back and, of course, his smartphone. Carrie Noten and Greg Somerville went to see how he got on.
first glance, Martin Pasquier might look like your average traveller, but he's travelling light. With only his rucksack and his smartphone to keep him company, his challenge is to use the social media networks to survive in Singapore for 7 days. But how did he get here?
This contest tries to check if a man can live on social media alone.
Martin's video won him a trip to Singapore to put this theory to the test. Job number 1, sign up for Facebook and open an account with Twitter. And even before arriving, he already had 250 friends and enough offers to keep him busy during his week-long adventure in Singapore.
At the start, I spent a lot of time on my smartphone because it was the main way of accessing events, people and the various things they offered me. Then the second step was to organize this information. So I had to get my notebook out, the good old pen and paper method, to set out day by day who I wanted to see, with their names, their telephone numbers when I had them, so I was able to organize a whole week.
The night's lodging is all thanks to his Facebook friends and the local network of contacts. So when Sue heard about his challenge, she offered to put him up for the night.
Hi, I'm Sue.
But not before doing her homework first.
He's a total stranger, but when my friend messaged me about him, and I'm like, he's not a serial killer, he's not a scam, right? So I immediately went to Facebook and Twitter and checked him out. Like, I can trust him, and in 2 hours he's here.
The web community was quick to lend a hand. Twitter peers offered him a ride. Through couch surfing, he was invited to a Malaysian wedding and banquet, and Facebook friends were keen to keep him fed, and a photo shop even lent him some cameras.
Sur Twitter, c'était plus dans la réaction à chaud.
On Twitter, there was more of a reaction in real time. I'd put, "I'm lost, I need someone to tell me which way to go," and someone would respond. On Facebook, it was more interactive, and I was also contacted by brands, both small brands, like the photography shop we're currently in, for example, but also major brands like Marina Bay Sands, a big casino hotel near here. They let me walk around their sun deck to get an extraordinary view of the city.
Martin, the digital survivor there in Singapore, and that's all we've got time for in this edition. You can keep in touch with us, of course, on the social network. We'd love to hear from you. The URL is coming up on your screen, and don't forget to follow both Eric and myself on Twitter. Now we end with our favourite of the many online tributes that have been made to The Voice, that is pop diva Whitney Houston. This one comes from talented teenage twins Leilani and Serena, who hail from Houston's native New Jersey.
Because you've got your family and they need you there. Though I try